Hello everyone and welcome to our final edition of VAFA Tragics for season 2018. Plenty of footy action to get through, plenty of off-field action to get through. And to start the conversation, as always, it's a welcome to Nick Armistead.
Lenny, I'm a bit sad you put it like that. The last Tragics for the year. It's been a fantastic season by your side, just the two of us this year.
That's right, no, been good. Probably definitely an improvement without the likes of Mann and Barn at the desk.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Dead wood.
No, it is a bit sad. Now, we got a few requests last year, how come no Tragics after the grand final?
Yep.
It's fair to say you're probably not in the best frame of mind to do a Tragics episode on the Monday after a grand final?
Not in the past couple of years, because we've usually had the sections lunch at the MCC, so it's always been a bit more difficult. And obviously, at the end of a long final series, a Sunday night, you use that to celebrate just a little bit.
What a round of football it was, or what a weekend of finals action it was, with grand finals, premierships decided all over the place. There were comebacks, there were close finishes, goal for goal quarters. But I'm going to start somewhere else for my highlight from the weekend. I mean, obviously we've got unbelievable results for certain clubs winning first flags in long periods as well. But I just loved the footage that was taken from Elsternwick Park on Sunday of the superstar Brendan Yetzi, who was only at this desk last week, coming off and being clapped from the field here by both sides, a guard of honour both sides, supporters from both sides just cheering him off. And the poor guy didn't really know what to do at the end of it.
He was a bit emotional too, wasn't he, Brendan? He told us he was an emotional man, but that is one of the best things I think I've seen in my time at the VAFA.
It was fantastic. So beautifully captured, and I just love seeing that on the Facebook page last night.
Well, my highlight of the weekend, I'm going to start with, I've got two. So first of all, I'll give a shout out to the Bowser Bear and Coffee Makers who sit up on Coffee Hill at Elsternwick Park. Matty Gronow, they are making one of the best coffees. I know that we rave about our dim sims, but the coffees at Elsternwick Park at the moment are absolutely fantastic. So, and the service is just as good. But my highlight of the week, Harry Dwyer from Under-19 Section 5 Grand Final. He plays, he's a vice captain for Aquinas, and he has kicked this absolute ripper from the boundary late in the game on the way to an Aquinas win. Now that's going to go close to goal of the year, and to do that in a grand final is an outstanding effort.
And unlike the AFL, it'll be included in the goal of the year runnings, whereas the AFL, Dustin Martin's goal from the final on the weekend, not included in the goal. How is that possible? It's a finals match and you don't count marks and goals from finals?
No, it's outrageous. This will certainly be included.
The problem I guess you've got is if there's a hanger in one of the grand finals coming up this weekend or something, then they'll just have to go into next year.
You can't include it, yeah.
Right. It just gets forgotten and remembered for all of us. Where do you want to start? William Buck Premiership, we start there. The preliminary final on the weekend. We mentioned Brendan Yetzi's last game for the club. Wasn't enough to inspire the Tees to win. St Kevin's just brought it from the get-go with 8 goals in the opening quarter. Yeah,
I think St Kevin's really had a point to prove after losing to Collegians and after losing a couple of players. As you said, 8 goals to 4 in the opening term set the scene, and they booted 11-5 thereafter. It was one of the best. Now, Anthony Lynch and Nick Wood were probably leading it early on, but one of the best displays of legal aggression I've ever seen. In that first quarter particularly, when they were setting the tone, Mitch Brown went on to kick 4 goals. He had an absolute day out, and they are looking very, very scary ahead of this weekend.
Yeah, Trinity did well to fight back in that second term.
Yep.
You thought, but they never got that margin back to sort of the 2.5 goals that it needed to be. I think the closest they got was about 22 points before St Kevin's kicked away again. And just watching it, I thought, they really needed to bridge that gap a bit closer in that second quarter.
Yeah, definitely in that second quarter. I was surprised because at the end of the quarter I thought, well, Trinity probably won that quarter but they were actually a goal behind, like 3-2. So they actually, despite the fact they did dominate, they weren't allowed to cut up through the middle of the midfield like they did against Brighton per se. I mean, Anthony Scott was probably one of their better players, but they just shut him down, Scob, defensively like they've done all season.
Going into the grand final next week, we know that Critchley and Gillam won't get back.
Yep.
Is there anyone else that's likely to come back into that side for St Kevin's to take on Collegians?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm hoping
Hunt out, obviously, with the tribunal ruling last week.
Yeah, so Jack Holden was sidelined on the weekend, so I'm not sure where he's at, but hopefully he can come back in for them. But I think the biggest inclusions are on the Collegian side of things. They're expecting Willie Johnson to come back. Tom Pemberthy, who hasn't played since round 11, will make a return.
It's big risk to come in.
It's huge, but they're not running with a ruckman at the moment because Singleton actually took the role of ruckman and he's been out. He'll come back on the weekend as well, but you need someone to come back because Lynch has been so dominant over this year, but particularly over the last 2 weeks. So
he was in that second semi-final as
well.
Exactly. Just put it on a platter for the likes of Wood and Sullivan in the middle there.
And Thomas Jock on the weekend as well, made his return.
Great inclusion, isn't it?
Oh, he's a freak. He's absolutely outstanding, and he could be the difference on the weekend.
You'll go close to getting drafted through the rookie draft at least.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Absolutely. Premier B, Old Carey are back in William Buck Premier. We'll touch on that. We're going to have Alisha join us at the desk, who's been scribing on Premier B all year soon. So look out for a full review of the Premier B and preview of the Premier B Grand Final. But they're back in Premier in one of the best final quarters of footy we've seen at Elsternwick Park for a while.
Outstanding. Just goal for goal in that last quarter, wasn't it? It was Jason Ashby kicking the winning goal. He had the ball on a string. And Carey, what was it, 2 years? So Carey went down the same year as St Bernard's did. So they're both back up there together now. So it'll be great to see them both back in the top section.
In Premier C, unbelievable scenes as well out of Box Hill City Oval. Williamstown, we mentioned it last week as one of the worst cases if a team goes out in straight sets, and that could have been Carey or Williamstown or even St Kevin's. They all managed to win through except for Williamstown. Devastating
for Williamstown. Now, their straight sets loss have come from a total of 4 points.
Yeah.
3-1 against Fitzroy and Old Geelong. But in saying that, Old Geelong were trailing by 6 points at three-quarter time. They kicked the first 2 goals of the fourth, and then they kicked 6 straight points as Willie gradually came back. They kicked a couple of goals, and so it would have been a lot of nervous people there for the Ogs. But outstanding for Old Geelong under Nick Burke to get where they are. They were only down in Div 1 a couple of years ago. Like, it's absolutely fantastic. So, look, I would have said Fitzroy in a canter, but you never know what Nick Burke and Old Geelong can produce given the last 2-3 weeks.
Scores were level for a long period late in that last quarter. I know looking at the live scores out, we're wondering, has the game finished yet? Has it finished? They're going to extra time, and they managed to edge ahead with that 1 point.
And the beauty of it is, I know they weren't celebrating too hard because they've got another week. But it's the first time they're back in B grade since 1958, I believe. So
that's a huge rise for the Ogs. So congratulations to them under, as you mentioned, Nick Burke there. In the Division Grand Finals, Ormond and Hampton Rovers, all eyes were on that game at Trevor Barker Oval, and this was another classic as well, with the Rovers coming back, taking the lead, and then we're looking like it going to extra time there as well for a while before Ormond kicked away to win by a goal.
Absolutely, and I mean, it was probably for the first 3 quarters, to be honest. It was a pretty dour game. Monders seemed to have it in control, but when they did kick those first 4 goals, the Rovers, as you said, things really heated up. And then Max Kennedy, who is a 17-year-old at Ormond, has kicked another one of the goals of the year. He's check-sided it. He's put it back, and as you said, they were tied again, and then they kicked a goal late in the game. I think the momentum did shift, though. Hampton still had the momentum when scores were tied, but there was an injury which stopped play for about 5 minutes, and then Ormond's taken it from half-back forward, kicked the set shot, and that's where things have changed.
It's a tough one, isn't it? When you've got the momentum, you switched on, you're in the game, and then all of a sudden, a massive stoppage takes place, stoppage in the game, and for some reason, you've really got to have your leaders stand up at that moment and go, right, guys, switch back and almost rough each other up and go back on here.
Yeah, absolutely you do. And I think Tom Buckley did that perfectly for Ormond. Their skipper, he probably did that perfectly. So, great effort from Ormond. Hampton Rovers, minor premiers this year, so they had a great one. But it's good to see them go straight back up after the double relegation.
One got the reserves flag as well. Which,
they did. It was a good day.
So it would have been tough for the Rovers there. UHSVU have gone back-to-back, winning another flag, this time over Old Paradians. I'm surprised by the margin here at Box Hill City Oval.
Yeah, so am I. I mean, Old Paradians probably weren't playing their best football heading into finals after going on a 2 or 3 game losing streak, winning the last game in round 18 and getting over the line obviously in their
It's hard to believe only 8 weeks ago we were talking about calculated losses for the OPs, and then they've dropped more games than we thought, and maybe they just fell away, and perhaps it was certain players I think went missing in the second half of the year. They went away, they lost those players to travel and things like that. We just show how much of an impact that has.
I know, and Chris Candelakis, their captain, didn't play. He was unfortunately suspended, so they were missing those leaders. And UHSVU, they've just gone from strength to strength in the past 2 years under Brendan Payne. And the fact that they were in so many finals without going up from Div 3, now they've won 2 in a row, is just an outstanding effort.
It's great to see some new names making their way up into the other sections as well as the VAFA. Glen Ira, in the big match against Hawthorn. Hawthorn led at half-time. They obviously had great success earlier in the day, winning a fantastic reserves premiership, the Hawks, in tribute to Dan Lalletta, and it was great to see those photos, which you can see now there. But they couldn't get over the line in the grand final, the senior grand final. They're still chasing that first senior flag in 20 years. Yeah, I know. They just probably didn't seem to have the legs. And I mean, it's a big difference too from Rathmines to Trevor Barker Oval. It's a lot. You've got to play that ground a lot differently. And to be fair, Glen Ira absolutely outstanding. And I think the cream of the crop, the Conleys of the world, they really stood up when the game was there to be won. So all these players that could be playing higher sections but aren't because they love the club. Barrett kicked 5 goals as well there for the Griffins, which was fantastic to see as well. The final grand final in the divisions was North Brunswick defeating Parkside by 36 points at the Garvey Oval for their first flag in 37 years. Outstanding. Outstanding. And you can see the scenes from after the game and the photos from the presentation. Everyone in that club
is involved in it, and they all felt it. And 37 years, 18 years in Division 4, so they're not just going up, but they're going up with that flag.
I did enjoy the cheeky tweet from the Old Paradings, who had their own grand final to worry about on the weekend. To North Brunswick. Hope you're looking after our rooms out there in the celebration. So I enjoyed seeing that. Right, we're going to take a quick break. We've got through a lot there. We're going to come back and have a look at the Premier B prelim. It's the biggest game in football outside of a grand final, and it's the Premier B preliminary final to see who makes it up to William Buck Premier. We'll talk about that right after this with Alisha. Welcome back to The Tragics. Hope you're enjoying this grand finals edition that we're running with here today. It's our last episode of the year, and we welcome for the first time this year the Premier B Scribe, Alisha Min. Welcome.
Thank you, Lenny. Nice to be here.
What did you enjoy most about riding Premier B this year?
I think there are some real stars in Premier B, which just makes it a joy to ride about. We can talk about him a lot today, but Chad Jones, what a year he's had. Easy to talk about players like him who kick 101 goals in the home and away season. Wins the GT Moore medal. It's just fantastic to talk about players like that.
One of the challenges I imagine would have been talking about the disparity between the top sides and the bottom sides and some of those margins, and trying to write, nice things about teams. Things about teams that are struggling on the park. Absolutely.
I run through Nick often on the Monday morning what I have written down from the weekend, and I try to make things sound perhaps a little more exciting than what it really is.
Did you manage to speak to some of the clubs about how they were struggling?
Yeah, a couple of the coaches throughout the year and a couple of the connections at clubs that I made too, who had a bit of an inside word of how things are going injury-wise, which you wouldn't necessarily know. But yeah, definitely a bit of a disparity, but I think at the end of the day, the best teams are up in the top four and the bottom two perhaps relegated.
Is this what you expected? St Bernard's Carey?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think the Carey Blacks was probably the biggest who else will it be, if you're completely honest, but it's not wholly unexpected.
So we're rolling the footage now. Obviously it was highlighted by the goal for goal nature in the last quarter, but the Premier B preliminary final, what did you take out of the game?
Well, I think one of the main highlights is Morgan Evans. Now, he was pushed forward in the fourth quarter, so Jax went down with a slight calf niggle in the first, which was strapped at quarter time, and then he didn't really play much of an effect after that. So they moved, stroke of genius from Michael Tarrant, old Kerry coach, moved him down into the forward line. He kicks 4 goals. He'd only kicked 5 for the whole year before this game, so I think that's going to really throw a spanner in the works this weekend. This unknown who can kick a bag in 3 goals in a quarter and 4 goals for the game. So I think that was super exciting, and also a lot of goals from Blacks too.
What about Jason Ashby's goal late in the game?
Fantastic, wasn't it? That's what you want to see in Premier B.
Do you like the fact that we didn't know? I mean, listening to the commentary at it, you got no idea when the siren's going to go. Would we like a countdown clock, do we think?
Nah, I don't think so. What do you think?
No, I don't. Out at Sandy, the countdown clock actually wasn't even working anyway, so we were forced to do it, and it just builds that anticipation, especially for the Ormond-Hampton game, when they are really close like this game here.
Okay, fair enough. Blacks, pretty good season again, but yet again they failed to progress back up. They were relegated last year, weren't they?
Yeah,
didn't manage to bounce back at the first hurdle. They'll be stronger for it, but what do they need going into next year, do you think, to try and make a tilt for it next year?
I think they'll be devastated, because I think they would have thought, with Cam Roberts as their head of the charge, he's so calm, and I'm sure that they thought they were going to go into it. But for people who like rivalries, they've got Old Geelong coming up, they've got Fitzroy coming up, so the old uni Reds. So there's going to be a lot to enjoy in Premier B, and we talk about sustained success a lot, and that's something that they can continue to build next year. So nothing to be worried about, I wouldn't think.
Carey, any chance of beating St Bernard's next week? Because it just feels like St Bernard's is to win, doesn't it?
I think there's a chance. I think you can be really complacent if you think you've definitely got it. Carey have got some real good young talent coming through. They've got Charlie Thompson coming up through the under-19s.
Well, he comes back because Richmond lost on the weekend.
Correct,
didn't he? Yep.
Correct. So I think they're feeling like they're in a really good space with Michael Tarrant at the lead as well. But they are obviously without Cam Jones, their skipper, re-broke his leg.
Yeah, shocking injury.
So
how big or how important is Andrew Sloan this weekend taking Chad? Now, he kept Chad goalless in the second semi, so how important is he this weekend?
Oh, I think he's pivotal. But I think they're really excited at the Old Kerry camp, though. They obviously only played 2 weeks ago, but they kept him goalless, which was the first time all season that he'd been kept goalless. And if they could do that again, they could really cause an upset here.
Right, neck on the line stuff. What's your tip?
I'm going to tip Bernards.
Yep.
By 2 goals.
Two goals.
Who are you going with?
Bernards by 6 goals.
Yeah, I probably think Bernards by about that 5-goal margin as well. But gee, I'd love the Panthers to win.
Wouldn't you?
Great win in the under-19s too. Right, Alisha, thanks very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you again next year.
Nick?
Absolutely we will.
We'll be back to wrap up on the Tragics after this.
Anytime is the right time to get fit at Anytime Fitness. Access over 400 gyms across the country 24/7 and discover why more Australians train at Anytime Fitness than any other gym. Go online and register now for your free 7-day pass and feel something better.
Welcome back to the Tragics. Sad, it's our last segment, so we better get into some tips. We've got best use of social, we've got the quick questions, we've got best and worst case scenario to come. But before we get into all that fun stuff, Nick, let's do tips. We just did the Premier B Grand Final. I did say St Bernard's by about 5 goals. I'm going to change my tip and go Old Kerry by 8 points.
I was surprised when you went against Kerry.
I'll be throttled if I don't jump on board the Panthers.
That's fair.
Premier. William Buck Premier. Collegians versus St Kevin's. We saw the game last year. It was a 3-point thriller at Trevor Barker Oval. It's at Elsternwick Park this year. What will the margin be and who's going to win and why?
I think it's going to be St Kevin's. I think it's going to be one of the more physical grand finals you've seen in recent years. I have not been more excited for a grand final, I don't think, in my 3 years here at the VAFA than I am for this. I think St Kevin's by 10 points for mine. I just think they're just going to be too strong. What they've done all year is they can get it done in the quarter. So I think Collegians will stick with them for 3.5 quarters. I think just late in that 4th quarter, we're going to see St Kevin's kick away.
Fascinating in the 2 finals, the last two finals they've played. In the second semi, just this we've seen, and also the grand final last year. Both teams had one team had an advantage and the other team came back late at them.
Yep.
So I expect more of that. I expect it's going to happen again. One team will have a bit of an edge and one team will rally and charge home. And I think Collegians will hold on to win by 6 points.
Either way, it's going to be a ripper.
It's going to be a sensational game. Elsternwick Park on Sunday, 2:30. The Premier B one we touched on. Premier C, Fitzroy versus Old Geelong, Trevor Barker Oval on Saturday. Who are you liking here?
Well, I'm liking Fitzroy to win this. I think they will. I've got them down by 8 points. Old Geelong have surprised everyone, I think, over the last 3 weeks, beating Willie twice. So they'll make a really good showing for themselves. But yeah, no, I'm going with the Royals this year.
I think Fitzroy, let's call them Old Fitzroy. Fitzroy Footy Club to win by 16 points in the Premier C Grand Final. Right, on to the best use of social media. Nick, this is in your wheelhouse. You're the expert on this all year. You've been dominating in the best use of social across all the clubs. Take it away.
Well, I want to start just a little one with the Hawthorn women. I know, strange for me to bring up Hawthorn in this segment. They had probably the last 3 in a row. But they were at the grand final on the weekend for the reserves and the seniors, and they had real-life bobbleheads of their players. And I just got a photo here that you can see. It's just absolutely fantastic stuff. You love that sort of support from the women or the men at your club. But my best case of social this week, actually, you brought it to my attention on Twitter the other night. You said, I think this would be right in your wheelhouse,
yes,
right up your alley. Have a look at this tweet from Andrew Batten, or Andy Van Bootsen, as he goes by on Twitter, where he says that chicks say, I saw your Insta post about your grand final win, congratulations, and blokes reply, really great, these birds don't know the difference between D4 reserves and William Buck Premier. And one of my favourite parts, he signs off AVB, sorry. So that's fantastic stuff from Andy. That's mine, and that has been one of my favourite segments this year.
You'd probably talk about your cricket premiership like it was a district premier section premiership.
All the time.
Yep. Exactly.
All the time.
Exactly
and no one knows any different.
Exactly right. Right, on to the quick questions then. Nick, you open us up.
I'll ask you, how will the commercial real estate industry operate when half of their employees are celebrating or commiserating a grand final result this weekend?
There seem to be a lot of commercial real estate employees in the VAFA. I'll tell you what, if you're interested in commercial real estate, it's a good time to get a bargain, because I reckon on the Monday, these guys won't know what they're selling or where they're selling it and what they're selling it for. So I reckon that's the opportunity that exists. So where there's an issue lies opportunity. Who should the rep teams play next year? 4-0 this year. Who should the VAFA rep sides play against next year?
Well, what I'd love to see is a three-peat. So I'd love to see the 19s, the women's and the men's all against AFL Vic Country. Now, we know the men's are playing AFL Vic Country anyway after we beat them by a record margin 2 years ago, and so they're coming back with a little bit of spite. They want to beat us. Now, the 19s are in, they won their first game in 4 years this year, and the women will be the first time they play against Vic Country. So what I would love to see is 3 games back to back to back, and 3 big V wins.
I reckon the rep teams, or particularly the women's team, should play against like the VFL as well. The VFL women's a combined team there.
I think they go quite well.
Yeah, I think they would.
Lenny,
Yep.
should the amateurs bring in a pre-season VAFA Cup?
They should. It's been on the radar for quite a while. I think we've run polls on it on the VAFA website about 4 or 5 years ago. I was speaking about it at the brilliant William Buck Grand Final lunch last week as well at Zinc there with a few people. I was talking about the handicap system. I think there's a lot of merit in it. You get North Brunswick coming in. They play against Collegians in the first week. They've got a 60-point head start because they're 60 places below or on the ladder. I think it's great. 2 20-minute halves, under lights at Elsternwick through the summer. Fantastic.
That would be great. Now, but you'd be selling more than 1,800 dim sims that night, I'll give you that.
Now, we broke the record as well on the dim sim count at Elsternwick on the weekend, 1,900. Rightio. Should the Premiers, this is an interesting idea, should the Premiers play a Champions League match after the week after the Grand Final against the other Premiers from the other sections?
Absolutely, they should. And it's much like your idea with that, I believe. I reckon they should. I'd love to see Premier versus Prem B. The champions of both those two sides. You know, we talk about the disparity between the two.
Do you think the players have put their celebrations on hold for a few days?
I think there might be a few dusty players. Well, I don't think it'd be the highest intensity game ever. But imagine what you could do with it. You could have Premier versus Premier B. You could have Prem C versus Div 1, Div 2, Div 3. And then Div 4 could play the Under-19 Premier Grand Final winners.
Congrats to Old Zaz, who came over at the top of Old Scotch as well.
They did, and they won the reserve as well. So they had a great day there in Under-19s. But I reckon there's a lot of merit to that. I reckon it'd be fantastic to watch.
Best and worst case scenarios to finish us off for the year.
My best case scenario is that we get more high profile recruits as we edge closer and closer to VFL standard. I just think our top tier, William Buck Premier, what I saw from St Kevin's on the weekend, they would have beaten a lot of VFL sides. And we've seen it over the past 3 or 4 years, all these high profile recruits coming back to the VAFA to play with mates, all that sort of stuff. So I'd love to see more over the off-season.
My best case scenario is the Tragics gets a spot on Fox Footy next year. I think speak to the powers that be, work it out, get us prime time on Fox.
Well, we know that Tommy Morris and old Mel Burney, we know he's a bit of a fan of the Tragics, so work us out there, Tommy. Do something for us there, please, sir.
Worst case scenario?
This weekend, we haven't seen it all final series, all 6 weeks of it, but the Elsternwick Wind returns this weekend for the big clashes.
Yeah, that would be disappointing for the grand finals. You're right, it stayed away beautifully. My worst case scenario is all the hard work we've done this year on the dim sim front, and it's been a power of work by everyone out in the clubs, certainly from the Follicle, who's done such a fantastic job reporting from around the grounds, from all the clubs that have sent us their photos of dim sims, etc. All that hard work comes to nothing. Fish and chip shops over the summer decide to up the prices on dim sims, and clubs just follow suit next year.
No, I'm not having it. We have seen a movement. You've just reeled it all off. We have seen a movement this year. It's been unbelievable.
I hope you've enjoyed the year.
I have, mate. I hope you have too.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Good luck
you,
on the
sir.
weekend.
You too.
We'll see you hopefully next year. Enjoy the footy on the weekend. This has been the Tragics.